You need to understand how important passwords are. Let me just quickly explain. If you have a password that has 10 numbers in it, scramble them any way you want. I've got a computer program that will unscramble those 10 and tell me what your password is in 5 minutes. The guy came up to me after I gave my workshop and said that my wife and I were just scammed out of $109,000. We thought it was our church.
Welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe, where we pour positive back into your day, sharing stories from real people who have made it through some real struggles, but were able to restore their health, hope, and peace. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and as a certified coach, I'm here to guide you to be your best self-advocate, to help you restore your health, ignite your faith, and conquer those fears while you navigate your own healing journey so you can eventually exchange your dis-ease for durability. If you're looking for hope and encouragement to live a life you love, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and today we're diving into a topic that affects millions of people every year, and unfortunately, not in a good way. Fraud and identity theft. Here's a sobering statistic. According to the Federal Trade Commission, Americans lost over $10 billion to fraud in 2023 alone, the highest ever recorded. And it's not just online scams. 1 in 3 people will experience identity theft at some point in their lives. The Global Anti-Scam Alliance, which actually it's crazy that there is one, but the Global Anti-Scam Alliance reports that scammers siphoned over $1 trillion in just 1 year, which is a number comparable to the total GDP of some nations. In 2023, NASDAQ's Global Financial Crime Report estimated that fraud scams and bank fraud schemes resulted in $485.6 billion in losses worldwide. Scams are becoming more and more sophisticated thanks to advanced phishing techniques, AI, and deepfake technology. And if you don't know what that term means, deepfakes are where AI can be used to make it appear as if someone is saying or doing something that they never actually did. So AI can make me say something that I never said, using my voice or using my video. This is something we need to think about next time we see a clickbait video online of somebody doing something outrageous, from politicians to celebrities. You just can no longer trust what our eyes are seeing. So, welcome to the Sunshine Cafe with stories that encourage and inspire, right? Not a very encouraging introduction maybe, but this is why we're talking about this today, because by slowing down and being knowledgeable and aware, and then taking some very simple precautions, we can protect ourselves and our families from being scammed and taken for thousands and thousands of dollars. And that is encouraging. And that's exactly why we're discussing this topic today. My guest is Jim Hughes, and he is a cybersecurity and fraud prevention expert. Jim has spent years helping individuals and businesses stay ahead of the scammers, and he is here today to share some real-life stories, some practical security tips, and the most important steps that you can take right now to keep your money, your identity, and your family safe. You're not going to want to miss this conversation, so let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and today I have a distinguished guest with me that I'm so excited for you to meet, because the best time to avoid fraud and identity theft is before it happens. And this man is the man to tell you all about that. So Jim Hughes, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Lisa. Good to be here with you.
Jim has been on a personal mission to help people understand what cyber threats and cybersecurity is all about, and really helping people protect their identity. I am really interested, Jim, in finding out how you got into that business and why it's such a passion for you.
Great question. And I think it all stems from some event that occurred, or some aha, if you will. But way back about 20 years ago, I got up one morning and went to my laptop, and big square popped up on the screen and says, we've locked up your entire account. Your computer is locked up, and all we need is $300 in gift cards sent to the following address. And if you need help on how to figure that out, get this, Lisa, how to figure out how to get that to us, here's a 1-800 number that'll explain it to you.
Oh my goodness.
Wild. And I learned the hard way how important backup is and how important security is. And that drove me from there to here.
Yeah. I think a lot of businesses spend a lot of money on this whole thing called cybersecurity, but unfortunately, too many of us individuals don't look at it seriously enough. And the methods by which people are stealing information and trying to infiltrate you or trying to masquerade as someone else are getting so sophisticated that people aren't realizing what's happening. So, how do you help people understand how to protect themselves?
Well, that's a big, big job, Lisa. I'm trying to get to as many business owners. We'll use cybersecurity as our subject matter here, but I'm trying to get to as many business owners, small business owners who think they're not a target for a ransomware or malware attack, any cyber security attack, and educate them on the do's and don'ts of what needs to be done on their computers at work, and most importantly, what their employees do. And so what I have been doing is creating tools, if you will, one of which I want to give to your listeners today, a free cybersecurity self-assessment checklist so they can answer 8 questions that'll tell them whether they're vulnerable to a ransomware or malware attack before it happens. And this is sort of a test. Just picture my little story here. It's like sticking your nose out your front door of your house and saying, putting your finger up and saying, okay, which way is the wind blowing? Oh, is it going to rain or is it cold? Sort of getting a feel for what's out there and is there any danger? And that's what this cybersecurity self-assessment checklist is for. I dig into the details of this and I get reports on a daily basis because it feeds my knowledge, if you will, about what's going on. And a lot of people don't want to admit, especially the business owner doesn't want to admit that they lost their business or they paid the ransom. It's terrible. And the big businesses we see on television, the reports, but the smaller businesses are not reported on the news media as much as the large businesses. And I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and we have a newspaper here called the Tennessean. In June, there was a special report put out that said that 49% of all small business owners in the Nashville and surrounding suburban area, which is a big area, have been hit by ransomware or malware. Those 49% of the businesses, and this is small businesses, 60% of them are out of business.
Wow.
So the statistics are stacked against the business owner. And my mission is to try to get to them based on my own experience, try to get to them and educate them and their employees, because the statistics are 85% of ransomware and malware attacks to a company's computers are caused by employee error.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to get to as many as I possibly can to help them.
Excellent. Well, just becoming aware of what kinds of methodologies they're using is a huge way to protect yourself. Even when I was back in my corporate world, we had to go through training every quarter, I think it was, just refreshing our memory about what kinds of phishing techniques they use to try to get any kind of information they can. And people think, well, so what, they get my email, or so what, they get a name. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. And the more pieces of the puzzle they get, then they can call and say, hey, I know Jim Hughes from this other department, and I just need to get this information from you. And people just give. They give information that they shouldn't give before they think about it.
Yeah, and it causes disasters. I mean, big time disasters. The other thing that I want to add to what you just said too, Lisa, is the advent of AI. Artificial intelligence helps those thieves create information about you and I by scouring, if you will, or scraping the internet and all the public service locations. And they can build their knowledge of you pretty easily. So it's easy to say, and this is Lisa, the CEO, Bob, he said for me to call you today, and we are your vendor that makes widgets for you, and we've got an invoice that's 30 days past due. I need you to pay that, but we need you to pay that to this particular account. That's a clue. That's a red flag, and it goes on all the time. It's
Yeah.
amazing, and the reason why the thieves do it is it works.
Because it works. And they don't have to get hundreds of thousands of dollars from someone. But if they get 100,000 $300 ones, it all adds up for them. So just understanding those methodologies, I think, Jim, is such a huge service that you're doing for people and small businesses out there. It's hard enough to start a business for those of us who are entrepreneurs or serial entrepreneurs. We know that. So really protecting that asset is really important. And the best way to protect that is to understand what kinds of ways you could be infiltrated. You mentioned AI, and it's interesting because my family has actually, we're suspicious of everything. Anything that comes in, we are suspicious of. We look at the web address and we make sure if it says, target.com or bestbuy.com or whatever the company, that it actually is their website. And we double check that twice before we click on anything. And we're really particular about that. But these days, like you said, with AI can create videos of a person. AI can create audio of a person. So we actually have adopted a personal password in our family. So if someone calls me and saying they're my son or my husband and they're asking for money, I can say, first of all, they would never ask me for money. So that's already suspicious.
That's a
But
clue.
yep, that's a clue. That's like we said, I like the red flag. But if they can answer my quick question about our password, then we're good. But yeah, so you really do need to put in those kinds of protections. And unfortunately, I think the older generation doesn't realize how fast AI has ramped up in these last few months. So how do you advise your clients and the people that you talk with to prepare for those things?
Well, I don't like to say it, but I'm one person at a time, so to speak. I try to get to as many audiences as I possibly can because of what you've been saying here. And of course, when I hear these stories and I'm looking face to face, I'm a foot apart from a senior who's 85 years old that just lost. I'm using one example that I had just recently. The guy came up to me after I gave my workshop and said that my wife and I were just scammed out of $109,000. We thought it was our church.
Oh, oh, no.
So what I'm trying to do, and there are a number of other people that are out there trying to do similar approaches to the marketplace as myself, but what I'm trying to do is build worksheets, if you will, that I can give to the audiences that gives them the basic tips on how to prevent or mitigate. It's a better word, mitigate the chance for an identity theft or to mitigate the chance for a ransomware malware attack. And the problem is, Lisa, that we can't do anything if they can't remember what those techniques are.
Good point.
And so I'm trying to get people to slow down, which is so hard in this day and age when you wake up in the morning and have your coffee and you're zipping through your emails and deleting one after another because you got 200 the last 24 hours or whatever it's been. Because sometimes we have a tendency to click on a link that we shouldn't have because it sure looked like my bank, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to educate both on podcasts and in person. I do a lot of presentations to associations and to businesses to try to get the message out as quickly as possible so people understand what's going on. The social engineering is one of the prominent, very sophisticated approaches to ransomware and malware, as well as identity theft to every citizen. It's not just senior citizen. And they've become very polished, very sophisticated in their approach. And of course, like you were saying, using AI has helped create that. So you being paranoid and your family being paranoid is, I high-fived you and your family because we have to be now. The world is different today. And with the digital world all around us, you can't live without the digital world. You've got to learn how to play safely, if you will, and protect you and family.
Yeah, that's so true, Jim. And again, I just really appreciate what you're doing. I want to mention that there's really no shame in preparing, number one, certainly, but because they're getting so sophisticated and it's so convincing, there's no shame in acknowledging that you were one of the ones that were susceptible to it. I have a lawyer friend of ours who lives just down the street from us, who had been literally her whole practice was talking about identity theft and malware, and that's what she did. And she succumbed to it. And that was a multiple thousands of dollars related to that one. So all of that to say, it happens to the best of us. But to your point, Jim, just have to really be prepared. So let's talk about what are the top 3 to 5 ways that people most often get into people's IDs and malware. How is that most often happening?
Well, let me start with you said malware, so that takes me to cybersecurity, and that is for the business owner. The top ways is clicking on a link, a phishing link, and that is coming through on an email, usually in the business, and an employee will see and recognize that email or think they recognize that email, and they'll click on it, and it downloads malware on their computer. And when that happens, then the threat actor, which is the identity theft thief or the cybersecurity thief, has written code into that download of malware to go wherever they want to go. And I'll use an example. I've got call centers across the country that take identity theft calls, cybersecurity calls, et cetera. And I've got a call center in California, and half of the phone calls coming in to their call center are people who have clicked on a link on a text message, and it downloads code, malware code. And when they do online banking, and the next time they go into their bank accounts, that code is programmed to follow them in, retrieve their credentials, and they sweep all of the accounts.
Wow.
That's half of the phone calls that are coming into the call center. That was in 2024.
Wow.
So that is one vector, if you will, Lisa, that is so doggone prevalent.
Before you move on, tell people, how do they avoid that? What can they look for in those links to make sure that they're not clicking a link that's a bad one?
Slow down. My suggestion, especially if any of your listeners do banking on a phone app, I'm going to answer your question here. I want to make sure it's clear, so I'm taking my time. If you are doing banking on your laptop or your desktop, you're okay to go in and do your banking. But when you click on a link on a text message, and we all get more texts than we get emails, probably. And when you get a link, any link on a text message, do not click on it. And my recommendation, of course, the banking industry doesn't want to hear this, but I would disable your app on your cell phone to your bank. If you want to do banking online, do it on your desktop or do it on your laptop. And of course, do it where you have a virtual private network, a VPN in place, so that someone isn't sitting next to you in a coffee shop waiting for you to go into your bank. And so that is probably my biggest concern for people. And it's happening each and every day. And of course, Lisa, I went into one senior living facility. The lady had tubes up her nose. She's in a wheelchair. She's breathing oxygen. And she stands up out of her wheelchair after I give my presentation. And she says, I had all my bank accounts swept because she clicked on the link.
Oh my goodness.
So, and you can picture that, elderly lady, probably 85 years old, in a wheelchair, living on oxygen, and she had all of her accounts swept. It's a travesty. That drives me, I think, more than anything else, is to get the message out to them as much as possible.
Okay.
So another way that people are really losing big time is by shopping online.
Okay.
We all shop online.
Yep.
But I'll use one example of a guy who in Chicago had a certificate of deposit, $700,000 certificate of deposit, come up for renewal. He went online and shopped rates, found a bank in Colorado, went to that bank and found that he would get 0.25% more interest on that 700,000. He transferred from his bank in Chicago to Colorado $700,000 without talking to the bank.
Oh, no.
And it went from there to New York to Atlanta and then out of the United States.
Wow.
All for 0.25% interest higher,
Wow.
which makes no sense at all. But that's the kind of thing. And it happens to intelligent people. Somebody that's got $700,000 is not usually ignorant, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So, and you said earlier, I want to capture that too. You said it happens to everyone, and that's true. I can give you example after example of happening to a 20-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 60-year-old, and an 88-year-old. So the sophistication is there, and as long as they keep making money at it, it's going to continue to occur. And they, as you and I are speaking right now, Lisa, they're figuring out new ways, new approaches to get into our systems to get to our money.
Yeah.
So my job is to do the best I can in educating as many people as I can. And I just wrote a book called The Digital War for Our Senior Citizens' Money, and all with the intent of trying to inform that group of people and to get it out to as many people as I possibly can.
Mm. Mm. Well, thank you. That's really, really valuable. We need that. And it is our job to try to protect ourselves as best we can, but understand that nobody is immune from it. So for anybody listening out there, don't think that'll never happen to me, because it could. I love your recommendation to slow down and always be asking yourself, is this a reasonable thing for this person to be asking me? Is this a normal thing for someone to be asking me about? And if it's normal and reasonable and you've done it before and it makes sense, still ask the question if in this case it still makes sense. So you talked about the links. I love that. Tell me what other kind of things are leaving us open to threats?
Oh, that telephone, that nasty telephone. What I'm talking about is giving information out over the phone. We have a
Mm,
tendency, especially the seniors, but it happens to all age groups, Lisa, is to give information out over the phone. So if I pick up the phone today and I call you, Lisa, I know your voice, I know your phone number, right? But you don't know where that's coming from.
right.
That phone number could have been spoofed, and it could also show my name on the incoming phone call. So you say, well, that's Jim. You know, I know Jim. And Jim asked some very innocuous thing like, I've got the last 4 digits of your social security number. I just need the other remaining digits. And maybe I'm the banker, maybe I'm a lender, if you will, mortgage broker, or whatever the case may be. When it involves money, never give any information out, never give any personal identifiable information. And I get some people say at my workshops, well, Jim, they tell me I got to give them my social security number because that's their policy.
Hmm.
Or Jim, I've got to give them my date of birth. Or when you set up codes where they ask you, what was your first dog's name? What was your first house address as additional security questions? I say lie. So if your first dog was named Spot and you have to give a name for a pet, of course, you need to keep track of it. You might put Brownie. Make up your own name. The reason why this is so important is because if I can get into any of the 3 credit bureaus, I can get your history there
Mm.
going back as long as you were reported to the credit bureau. If I can get into your university, I can get information. If I can get into your job and your website, I can get information on you. So there's lots of ways to put the profile of the identity of Lisa or Jim and build that profile to the point where I can use it to buy a boat in Florida. Or I've got a slide on one of my presentations where I've got a 4-year-old boy looking straight into the slide saying, I'm 4 years old and I own a condo in Chicago,
Right.
all caused by that kind of assembly of information.
I know sometimes there are cases where you do need to communicate information, especially if you're talking to your doctor. Of course, they always ask you your birth date. Now, that situation makes sense and you know who you're talking to in that particular situation. But one of the ways that we have avoided that is giving part of the information and emailing part of the information. So you're never giving the complete information in a conversation. So that's one way. Do you have other tricks or ideas for people to avoid when you really do have to communicate information that could be considered sensitive or personal? How can you communicate that over a phone or an email and have it be safe?
Well, you hit on a real good technique, Lisa. I like the technique. The only thing I find fault with in your technique is if you give me the first part of your social security number over the phone and you email the last four digits to me. Email is the wild, wild west. There is nothing secure about email. Texting is more secure than email. What I would do if they ask me for my credit card number, or if they ask me for especially a debit card is dangerous because it's so easy to clear out your account that way, whereas a credit card has laws to protect you. But to answer your question directly, I would say, okay, if you need my credit card, here's the first six digits of the credit card. Take that information and I'll call you back in 5 minutes under a separate phone call and give you the other four digits.
Yeah.
Or I can text it to them. I would not put any sensitive information over the internet. And I just had it happen with me where I had a certificate of deposit that renewed, and she wanted to email the signature form to me that I had to sign, and I had my social security number on it. And she says it automatically downfills in our computer system. I said, I don't want you to send that over the internet. Literally, they drove to my house with that paper, the bank did,
Wow.
and I signed the document for the renewal. So there are good techniques, and as I tell all of the people that I have contact with, you need to change your codes and change your passwords regularly.
Clearly, so
And
true.
so it's real important. Now, the thing that I want to mention to you, which is a passageway into theft, is your password. Your password is the front door to the security of your financial holdings. And you need to understand how important passwords are, even though everybody rolls their eyes when I say you need to change your passwords. But let me just quickly explain. If you have a password that has 10 numbers in it, figure them any way you want, scramble them any way you want. I've got a computer program that will unscramble those 10 and tell me what your password is in 5 minutes.
Wow.
If you have a combination of letters and numbers and you have 8 characters, that combination, my computer program can scramble and read that, if you will, through a mathematical computation. And in 34 days, I've got your password. Now, a thief will wait for 34 days because on data breaches, they'll wait for 2 years
Yes.
to start using it. So if you have a password with no words, numbers, letters, symbols, no words, and you have 16 characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, or symbols, no words, it takes my computer program 152,000 years
Oh,
to break that code.
wow.
So do you see why I have on my bank account, I have 22 characters, no words. And then I get usually people in the audience saying, well, Jim, I can't remember 16 characters, especially if there's no words in there. Well, I do a training and teach people how to create a strong password, 16 characters or more, that they can remember and use over and over again. I
Mm,
won't take the time to do that now, but I just want to get that information out because that's a third area answering your question of easy penetration into your personal identifiable information,
yeah.
wherever it's held.
Love that. So good. 16 characters, man. Get on it, right? Put those passwords in place and revisit them on a regular basis. So good.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. How many of us know people who still have things in their systems that are their password is password?
Yeah, the number one password still today is password, which is wild.
That is wild. That is wild. No, I don't know. There are some of those apps out there and things that like I know have zero identifying characteristics in them. They have no, and it seems like they are like tighter than Fort Knox, man. It's like there's nothing in this app that says anything about me, and yet I have to jump through all the hoops and do the two-factor authentication and all of that. So, well, this is
Yeah,
an interesting topic and an important one because it is affecting all of us. And if it hasn't affected you yet, it's going to affect you. So,
well put.
yeah. What other kind of things would you recommend then, my friend?
Yeah, I want to close on a positive note too, Lisa. And as difficult as we've made it in this conversation, as far as details are concerned, complexity of technology, etc. Believe it or not, it is a simple way to defend yourself
Yeah.
and make sure that you don't become a victim.
Mhm.
And so one is change your passwords 3 4 times a year. If you've been involved in a data breach, change all of your passwords immediately, because your 16 or greater password characters is no value then, because the thieves have it if you're involved in a data breach. And so if you remember that 85% of the time in a business that a ransomware or malware attack comes from an employee error, then train your employees. There's plenty of training programs. I have one myself to teach them what to do and not to do. And I would just close the door on transferring money unless you talk face to face with the individual. It's not from an email. The order doesn't come from a phone call, because that all can be doctored up with AI. Don't give any money, just like you were saying, Lisa, earlier. Don't give any money to anyone, even if you recognize them. If Lisa calls me and says, Jim, I need $1,000, I'm in trouble, blah, 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 and I know her voice, and say, Lisa, where are you at? What's your phone number? Where are you at? And you will give me your phone number. I'll call the number I have on Lisa and find out if that's really Lisa.
Yeah.
So there are certain techniques that are really simple, but will help us avoid the risk of identity theft. Just don't transfer money. Don't give personal information out over the phone, iPad, or laptop. And understand that if somebody calls you from the IRS, someone calls you from the federal government, somebody calls you from the county clerk's office, all of those are scams. They don't make those calls.
Right. So true.
So I hope I've answered your question. And quite frankly, we can prevent this from occurring if we take a few simple steps like we talked about. And
Absolutely.
your ideas were really good too, Lisa. I commend you. You and your family are on top of it.
Thank you, Jim. Well, one day at a time, we try to get better as we go. But one of the things I want to mention for anyone listening out there, you can protect your business and you can protect yourself. But I really want to encourage you to start thinking about your parents as well. Because the more we talk about this with each other and the more we look out for each other and help each other understand the risks, will save your entire family so many headaches. So that's one of the biggest encouragements I can take out of this is knowing that if I just do a little bit, like you said, Jim, slow down and put some thought into things before I take action on things, I can avoid a huge mountain of problems that would maybe be waiting for me otherwise.
And I'll throw a little extrapolation on that too, Lisa. And that is that if you're a POA, meaning you have power of attorney over your parents, it's real important to share techniques with them. And I've got them. You can put them in the show notes where they can click on those and it'll take them to the two tools I have. One is for identity theft prevention for seniors, and the other one is cybersecurity self-assessment for companies, small companies. And you can use those tools to educate your parents. And the sad part about it too, Lisa, is if your parents give all the money away, guess where they have to come to live? They come live with you because they don't have any money any longer, or you have to fund their retirement living. So it's up to the children of seniors to be cognizant, if you will, of the defenses as well. We can do that. And there
Mhm.
are ways to prevent that. And I'm trying to do as much as I can. And so are you, Lisa.
Yeah.
to help prevent that. So on a positive note, there are preventions that can help deflate, if you will, or defense against disasters.
Absolutely. You know, and one of the things actually we didn't talk about, which I do want to mention here before we wrap up, is mail. There's so many scams that are coming across the mail these days, and some of them look like they're so official. They look so official. And if you sign the little check and mail it back in, all of a sudden you're on a subscription that they charge you automatically for, or something else. You even in our mail, when I was power of attorney for my mom for more than 17 years, I unfortunately had all of her mail diverted to me. Now, unfortunately, I say because she didn't get some of the fun things, but I would bring the fun things back to her. And I had all of the things, the risks. The debit card was canceled and the credit card was canceled. And if she wanted anything, I would just buy it for her. But it gave one level of, Mom, don't worry about it. I'm going to help you. Let's do this together. And then she would just connect with me. And we had two people looking at every transaction to know that what was happening was in a good place. So don't forget about the mail, my friends. Mail can be a scam place as well.
I highly recommend that you pay your bills online or through your computer directly to American Express or Citi Card or Visa or Master or whatever the case may be, because if you mail a check in using the USPS mail, it touches, on average, 13 people's hands before it clears your bank account. All opportunities for theft. And I have example after example of where with Photoshop, they changed the payee to an individual when it was going to an American Express because one of those 13 people got a hold of that check, pulled it out of the mail system, and committed fraud. So real important thing. So thank you for bringing that up. I like to leave that message as well.
Yeah. It can be disappointing to hear of just how greedy and to what depths people will sink for fraud. But it's encouraging to know that you can take control back and you can do something about it to prevent it before it ever happens.
Yes, very much so.
So, Jim, thank you so much for all your insights and your wisdom. You have a wealth of knowledge. And how can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about your webinars or your presentations or more information that you have to share with them?
Well, I have, again, 2 documents I want to put in the show notes for them to use, and they then can get on my newsletter list where they can receive regular updated information on how to prevent fraud from occurring to them as well. My website is businessrisksolutions.net, and we could probably put that on the show notes as well. And of course, my email address is jim@businessrisksolutions.net. And I can take an email at any time and help anyone who needs help. And I'll be happy to come to you and make presentations if you've got an association or senior living facility, et cetera.
It's very generous of you to be so available for everyone. So thank you. Sir, you have been such a highlight. I just have really enjoyed having you. And I thank for all of my listeners out there. If you were on like a plethora of newsletters and you're like, I can't handle one more, this is one newsletter you need to be on because you need to keep this stuff top of mind. So I hope that you'll sign up for Jim's newsletter. And Jim, thank you so much for being with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Lisa.
I just so appreciate Jim's real pragmatic approach to this whole topic and his real life examples to help us wake up and pay attention to the things that we can do now to save ourselves a bunch of headaches in the future. I have 5 valuable takeaways for you today. Number 1, slow down and stay skeptical. Scammers rely on urgency to trick you before you really have time to think about it. So take a moment before you click on any links, before you share any information or send money to anyone. If anything feels off, it probably is. Number 2, use strong, unique passwords. Simple passwords are easily cracked, so use 16 plus character passwords with symbols and update them on a regular basis. A password manager can help you keep them safe and secure, and make sure you don't forget them. Number 3, never click links in emails or texts, especially for banking or financial accounts. Never click links. Instead, go directly to the website by typing in the URL yourself and find the area of that link that you were trying to go to or that email wanted you to go to. Desktop banking with a VPN adds an extra layer of security, but not always necessary. Just be wise when you see those links and make sure you're clicking on something or going to a space that is safe. Number 4, protect your family members. Whether these are your parents or your children, remember scammers target the vulnerable. That includes seniors and the underaged. Help them monitor mail, bills, and financial transactions. Set up a power of attorney that can provide extra protection for those family members that might otherwise be vulnerable. And if you give your kids a credit card or a debit card or other ways of spending money, especially if it's tied to your bank, make sure you have safeguards in place to keep your kids and your money safe. And number 5, verify money transfers and requests. Always take care of those large transactions in person, or make sure they're done over a known secure phone number. Scammers will often impersonate banks, sometimes family members, or even CEOs of a company to steal money. So be awake, be alert, and take a pause before you do anything related to money to make sure that who you're sending it to is who you're intending to send it to. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please share this episode, especially this episode, because you never know what kind of encouragement might be in this conversation that someone else needs to hear. And we heard Jim say it. Every time he speaks about this topic, someone tells him about a scam that they were unfortunately susceptible to. So pass along this episode, like it, share it, and subscribe. Let's work together to flood the world with more encouragement. Until next time, my friends, stay encouraged, be inspired, and we'll see you right back here next time at the Sunshine Cafe.